My name is Sean, and I'm delighted you're joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Laura Rogers, MVP, who will cover buttons in SharePoint lists, low-code logic. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join on the conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESPC_community, and our hashtag is hashtag ESPC25. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which updates the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Building a Secure, Compliant SharePoint Online Environment with Admin MVP. This webinar will take place tomorrow, Wednesday, 22nd of October at 11 a.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/SharePoint Week. In celebration of SharePoint Week, we're excited to announce an exclusive offer for ESPC. The first 10 new bookings will receive a €500 discount on their conference ticket when using the code SharePoint Week Special. This limited promotion is our way of recognizing the SharePoint community ongoing innovation and engagement. Don't delay, this offer applies only to new bookings made before October 31st. As always, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to type in the chat box and Laura will get to them during the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter, Laura. Hello, Laura. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thanks. Good to be here. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. All right, so can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see your screen perfectly. Thank you.
Great. Welcome to Buttons in Microsoft Lists, Logic for Non-Devs. I'm Laura Rogers, and I am not a programmer. So everything that I like to teach and these concepts and how to accomplish things in SharePoint, Power Automate, Power Apps, all these things is really geared towards business users. So that's why I say non-devs in the title. So I'm Laura Rogers, been doing SharePoint for about 20 years, and welcome. Here's the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about this concept of having SharePoint lists and libraries and having the ability to provide a simple button for end users to be able to click to be able to take an action on that item. So currently you can select items in lists and libraries, and then you can select things from the toolbar, such as kicking off flows, things like that, doing quick steps. So with this concept, you're going to be able to create a button using JSON to trigger different types of actions. So we're going to talk about the power of these buttons, getting started, concepts with JSON. Again, I'm not a programmer, so I'm kind of translating these concepts. Talk about button appearance, conditional formatting. We have some demos, and we're going to be using Copilot in here as well. So sometimes you never know what will happen when you use Copilot in a demo. So that'll be fun. So first of all, you have the ability in, and again, I'll just say lists, but all this applies for lists and libraries. So you have the ability to click on any column heading in SharePoint and be able to do formatting on that column. So if you can write JSON code or paste JSON code, that's where you can pretty much, the sky's the limit to how what you want your buttons to look like and conditional formatting and things like that that you can do on it. So the reason I like to do this method is because it makes it easy for end users. So just the fact that we're presenting a button that's clickable just directly on the list gives them less places to have to find things and maybe kind of the confusion of a long list of things in a toolbar. So it just gives them a very simple interface and immediately triggers that action, such as an approval or kicking off a flow. And they don't have to open that item. So again, it's just less clicks and super simple. I always like to make things very obvious for end users. So we're going to talk about this concept of just clicking to trigger something. and again, just not having to, it's just less clicks for end users. So anytime I refer to SharePoint list, that is the same thing as Microsoft list. It's the exact same thing. It's just Microsoft refers to it as two different things. So this is just an example of what a list looks like. You can get to them in your SharePoint site. You can get to them just from the Lists app in Microsoft 365. So here are some examples of some buttons. And you'll notice that what I did was I really just created a column. When you're creating these buttons, you have this concept of you can create just a brand new blank column, just a text column, and simply apply JSON code to it. And there's no actual data in the column. You could just use it for the purpose of presenting that button. So you also could take a column that does have data in it and utilize that to present it as a button and maybe display the data that's in the column. So we have a lot of capabilities with how we use these. So in this example, I've got an approve button, a reject button, and I'm showing you a dynamic one that says email so-and-so, and it's got like the person's name who did the request. So it's showing you that you can have hard-coded verbiage, but also have dynamic verbiage that's showing data from the column. Now, when we start formatting with JSON, creating these buttons, there are just some basic concepts that I'm going to go over to understand what all these pieces mean. So if you find some code online that you're just kind of copying, pasting in, or if you're getting Copilot to generate it, you'll be able to look at it and find these little pieces and be able to maybe do some fine tuning if you need to. So we have the different parts of the button. So we have the Elm type, it's like the element type. And we have TXT content, which is the content of kind of what the word says on the button. We have the style, what it looks like, and then we have custom row actions. So I'm going to go into all of these now. So first of all, for the element type, this is going to be the type of element. So button is what I'm going to be using in these examples today, but you do have a few different ones that are available. As you can see here, you have hyperlink, images, and file previews. So these are just different types of elements. So if you wanted it to be a hyperlink, that means you would want to link them to open something completely different. So maybe if you have a list of customers and you have the website of each customer and you wanted to have a pretty button that links you a hyperlink to open that customer's website, that's kind of an example of what hyperlinks can be used for. So and the file previews one is one that I've seen people use a lot with document libraries, where it'll actually show you the file preview as that element in your column. So those are the element types. Again, we're just using button in this in all these demos. And then you have the TXT content that's optional. So you don't have to have verbiage on your button. It makes sense to have verbiage for people to know, what the button means. But what you can do is you can have a few different variations. You can do static text. You can just make it say something like click here or approve. You can have a field value. And in this example, I'm referring to another field called status. So it's got this little $ syntax here. So you want to refer to another column other than the column that the button is in, that's where you refer to that system name of it that way. And then you have a current field. If you have the verbiage in the field that the button is in, then you would refer to it with this ampersand. So here's how an example down here where you can combine them and say something like current field concatenated together. So you do these it's kind of got a very specific syntax here. So you say equals, and then you got these little single quotes in here, the status is, and then to concatenate it together, use a plus, and then you would put the name of the column. So that's the syntax for combining text with dynamic information.
Laura, there's just a question in, if that's okay.
Uh-huh.
So can your button make a power automate action without additional click after the first click? Thinking of
Yes,
the run flow.
yes,
Yeah,
that's the main crux of this presentation. So we will, yes,
perfect.
absolutely. That's what I love about this concept is that we can do that. So yes.
Perfect.
All right, so the next we're going to talk about the button appearance. So we have the style. So that's the little style portion of that code. You can customize the appearance of your buttons with just CSS. So this is an example of CSS styling. If you don't know CSS, you can just use Copilot to create it. So in this example, you can see if you've ever used CSS, you can see some little familiar things in here, like the border, background color, padding, font size, border radius, things like that. But again, Copilot can create that for you. And so I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So you can see it's a very widely ranging how you can make these look if you'd like to. All right, let's try this out. So I'm gonna get this up on my screen here. And first of all, I have this list. And this is my recruitment tracker demo. I simply created this just from the list template called recruitment tracker demo. So just got some fake data in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a new column, just a text column. And I'm just going to call this button. You can
Laura, are
call
you
it.
sharing a screen at the moment? I can't see a screen yet.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sharing. I stopped sharing my presentation and I started
Okay.
sharing a window instead. So I guess it doesn't like that. Let's see. Go ahead and put it back. There we go.
Yeah, I think something's popping up now. It just takes a
Okay,
second to
cool.
load. Yeah, perfect. I can see it
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, you didn't miss anything. So here's my recruitment tracker demo that I created just from a list template. And I'll go ahead and add a column. And probably when I switch back and forth between the slides and the screen sharing, it might do that. So just let me know if I forget. Okay, I'll just call it button, and it is just a text column. So this is where I'm going to put my code. So here's the fun part of using Copilot to generate the code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a prompt. And here's my prompt. I've already written it. I'll read it to you. Let's see. GPT-5 is on. And let's see if I can zoom in a little. Okay, so create JSON code to create buttons in my SharePoint list and make them interesting and visually appealing, but simple. Turquoise is my favorite color. So we'll see what it does. So, all right, so let's see. Now I've done this in a demo before and it worked perfectly. So you never know though. Let's see what it's going to do. So I'm going to copy the code and then go back over to SharePoint. And so here's my button column. And I'll go to format this column. This is where the magic happens. So by default, when you click format this column, it's going to look different depending on what type of column it is. This is just a text column. So it just has this conditional formatting thing. The trick is to go over here to advanced mode. And it's going to have just a little bit of code in here already. I'll just select all that and just redo it, just paste in my code. So it's got like a little comment in here that it doesn't like. Let's see, preview it. Look at that. That is beautiful. So I haven't decided yet. I haven't told it yet what I want the button to do, but this is the part where I'm just figuring out how I want it to look. So I've just created the code. I clicked preview and it looks good. So I'll go ahead and save it. And then I can see where it says view details. I can say I want to send an offer. Send offer. So I'm going to have, the idea here is that I'm going to have a little workflow that it's going to trigger as we get further in these demos that's going to immediately kick off a flow to send an offer. So that's going to be kind of where the magic happens. So I'll go ahead and just save that and leave that there and go to the next slides, because now all we have a button that doesn't really do anything. It just kind of guessed here in what the action is. So let me know if, do you see my slides? No,
No, I
it's,
can see the demo still. Yeah.
oh,
SharePoint
interesting.
demo. Yeah.
Let me fix that.
There's a question in actually.
Oh, okay.
Um, what can be done by default click action? Can it include JS code?
I am not a programmer, so I don't know anything about JS code. I don't think it can do JS code, but then literally the next slide is talking about what the actions can do. So
Perfect.
not sure about JS code. Sorry.
I
All
can
right.
see your
So
slides again. Yeah.
oh, good. Okay. Custom row action, that is the action you want it to take. So here's some examples. You have default click, which is really just the same as clicking that item to open it. So it would just open the item. So instead of somebody having to click the title of it or to right click and choose edit, it would just open it directly from the button. Execute flow is that's the what somebody was asking about a few minutes ago, where it kicks off a flow, but you still have that flow panel that you would have to go click to run the flow. So not the best. And then set value is my favorite. That sets one or more field values with a single click. So that's going to be that instantaneous, just you immediately see the value change on that, whatever that field is. And there's actually a quick step that it does this as well. But again, this is faster because it's just a button on the row item as opposed to having to click to open the quick step and then click to trigger it. So set value is my favorite. And then that's where you have a special, so this is the one that I was referring to. Let me show you why you wouldn't want to do this. So when you're running flows, when you do the one that, the action that runs the flow, that's going to, you have to give it the GUID of your flow. So it's going to have, each flow is going to have this long unique ID to it. So this is where we'd have to provide the GUID, and then someone would click the button and then the panel pops up and then they would click run flow. So this is what I don't like. This is what I don't like to make the end users do. And then here's the one where we set values. So we're going to use the action button to set a value. Now you can set multiple values. So if you think about something like a help desk ticket, and you could just click a button that says take ticket, and the ticket could change the status to assigned, and it could also put you, the person who's clicking the button, in the assigned to field all in one fell swoop. So here's an example of the syntax for what it looks like to set multiple values. So you can see that it says action set value, and then action input is where it has, you're going to put basically the field name and then the text that you want to be in that field. So you could see that I've got executive true. Now that's a Boolean, and then status approved, that's text. And then if you had a number field, you would not put that in quotes. So if anything that's text is going to be in quotes, a Boolean is just going to say true or false. And then a number is just going to be that number and not have quotes. So that's where you have the ability to do that by just setting all. You could just have one field value, but you can have several if you'd like. So here's another example. The button says working on it, and then when you click it, it sets the status column to in progress when clicked. So here's the TXT, the content where it just says working on it, and then action input just has that one action that it's doing where it sets the status to in progress.
Lloyd, there's just a question in there, if that's okay.
Sure.
How about date, ISO, or text?
Ooh,
i.e.
dates. I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't done a date one in a while, so I just don't remember what the syntax is for that. Sorry about that. It's most likely text, where you would just put, and also depends on if the field is a date or date and time setting on it, as to what, how much of the date you need to put. I guess if it's just date and time and you only provided a date, it would just guess at midnight. So any other questions?
No, that's it so far. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if you need more than just fields changed when you're using this button, you can create a flow. So this is where we're kind of combining the concept of just quickly setting a value to, status approved or something like that and being done with it, to having the user click a button that kicks off an entire flow that where you need to have multiple things happen. Like maybe you need to assign an approval to someone, or you needed to send a very custom email, or go off, change values in other lists, and all kinds of things that you can do with a flow. Of course, the sky's the limit. So if you need more than just fields changed, you can create a flow and then trigger that flow only when the field gets changed. So the key here is that you could take action only if that is the field that has just been changed. So the way we can do this is by creating a trigger condition, so that when someone clicks that button, it is setting a value, but when it sets that value, your flow is only going to trigger on that specific value. That way you don't have that flow just triggering all the time, just for every single edit that gets made. So this is a good way to narrow it down to be very specific, so you don't have a ton of extra flow runs or a bunch of conflicts. It's only going to run under that circumstance. So in this example, it says,
Sorry, Laura, there's another question in there. I think it's on the last one. Is how how about a lookup column?
a lookup column is going to have a special syntax too, since it's a one of those complex columns. So usually with a lookup column, you have to provide the ID and the value, those two different pieces of data. I just don't have that syntax written down in my slides, but yes, it is. Complex columns like lookups and people columns are going to have different syntax than when you're dealing with those and setting the field values. Yep.
Perfect. And there's two more questions in if you want to go for them.
Sure.
What if the user clicking the button does not have edit rights to the row in question?
Well, you can't have it set a field value if you're not giving them edit rights. So yeah, they would need to be able to edit that item in order to change that status or take that action on the item. And even if you had them kick off a flow that's making a change to that item, they would still have to have access to be able to edit that item as well. So.
Perfect. And then does the trigger condition also work for the action when an item or document is modified?
Yes, well, I'm only going to use that for when the item is modified, because if the item doesn't exist yet, if it hasn't been created yet, then they don't have a button to click on because there's no item. So this trigger that I'm going to show you is only going to be used for items that already exist and are being modified.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, so once the flow gets triggered, and I'll show you the trick for figuring out this kind of tricky syntax that it has. Once a flow gets triggered, then not only are we going to only trigger it based on that specific value in that column, we're going to trigger it based on, we're going to put a condition in there, only looking if that column was just changed. So if somebody changes the status to in progress and it triggers the flow, and then later on somebody edits something else and the status is still in progress, it's not going to keep triggering that. It's not going to keep running it, because once it triggers, we're going to go look and see if that column is the one that just got changed. And then the actions we're going to take after that are only going to be if that status was just changed to that specific value. All right, demo time. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so here I still have, there's my list that I'm working on, and I want to, when somebody clicks this button, I want to change the progress to offer sent. So I'll set a few of these values just before I do this to some other progress, just so that we can see it work. All right, so now, this button is we're going to set it so that it sets progress to offer sent. So got to make sure we have the right, yeah, so capital O, lowercase s, so we have to have the correct verbiage in there. So let's go back over to the code. And this is where we're going to change this to, instead of action default click, it's going to be action set value. So I'm just going to paste that in there. And then this is where we put the action input, which tells it exactly which column we have. Now, let me go ahead and save this and show you that we need to know the system name of that column. So the quick way of knowing the system name is to sort by that column and then look where it says sort field equals. And then it says progress. So progress is the name of the column, and progress is also the system name of the column. So we need the system name. So now we have the system name of that column. And so that's where we'll need to put this in here. So let me get some code and paste. Custom row action. Okay, so I've got custom row action set value. And then here's where my action input, and then I have the column. I'll stretch this out here. Column is called progress, and the text it's going to change it to is offer sent. So let's try that out. I'll move this out of the way. And I haven't done the flow yet, but let's see. Don't want to be in grid view. Okay, did you see that? That happened so fast. So I click send offer, and now it changes it to offer sent. So that's where I'm going to go create the flow now that specifically triggers when progress is offer sent. So I'll go create a new flow. Skip that. And my trigger is going to be when an item or file is modified. So it only triggers for an existing item being modified. All right, now here is where I need to pick what is my IWB Mentor training, and then my work progress tracker demo list. Sorry, recruitment tracker demo list. And so now I've given it my list that I'm working on. And then here's the part where you do the trigger condition. So this is where the trigger condition gets added, but I need to figure out the syntax. And so here's my little hack for figuring out the syntax. So I put a do until loop just temporarily, just because I found that these are very useful for getting that special syntax. So here's where I want to put what my condition is. So I'll say progress, see the value of the progress column, right? That was progress, is offer sent. It's got a capital O or lowercase s, is equal to offer sent. And then here's the trick. You click edit in advanced mode. And there is, I go to code view, and here is my syntax of what I need to paste in there. So I take it, I start at the ampersand. Let me see if I can zoom in. I start at the ampersand here, and I get this ampersand equals blah, 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 blah. And I just copy that to my clipboard. So here's where I can go to my settings, add a trigger condition, and paste it. All right, so now I have a trigger condition. It hasn't given me any errors about the syntax or anything. Let me make sure it's not. Sometimes it doesn't tell you there's a problem with your syntax until after you save the flow. Oh, I didn't give the flow a very good name, did I? So I'll just say recruitment %. And then, all right, so I don't need the do until loop. I can just delete that. Right here. So I'm just going to only trigger it when it's changed, when it's offer sent. And then here's where I do that condition that I mentioned, where you look to see if that specific field is the one that just changed. So before I can see if that field is the one that just changed, I have to do the SharePoint get changes. So many SharePoint action. There we go. Get changes for an item or file. So here's where I can go to, here's my site. Here's my recruitment tracker. And the ID of the item, I want to see if it changed. Of course, the item is the ID is the one that just triggered it. It's the only thing in there. And then you have this since and until in here when you're using this trigger. The key to this is just to use the trigger window start token from since, and the until is the trigger window end token. So this just gets it, it just grabs at the window, the very small, like milliseconds of time of that thing being triggered. That's what it's going to get that change that was made in that time frame. So it goes and gets the changes, and then here's what I have when it gets the changes is a big long list of Booleans. So when I see get changes for an item or file, it just has a whole big long list of has column changed, has column changed position, has column changed title. So it's really just lists every single column in there. So the progress is what I want. The progress is the one that we're changing, and that is right here. It's getting changed to offer sent. So only if has column changed is equal to true. So it's just going to be Boolean. So that column will be the one that changed. So has column changed true. And then at that point, you can make your flow do whatever it's supposed to do. So I can do like, I'll just do send an email, something pretty simple. Send an email, and I can send an email to that person. Let's see. The recruiter, let me see, is that, yeah, I'll just send it to the recruiter email. All right, and then offer sent to, and I can dynamically put whoever that candidate was, which I think is just the title field right here. Offer sent. Something very basic. Okay, so now I'm sending that email, and I'm doing, just anything else that you want to happen in that part of the process of your recruitment. You could have it start an approval process. You have approval actions. I'm not going to do the approval actions in this demo because I don't want to get caught up with waiting for the approval and having the flows all, having to log in as different users to approve things. So I'm not going to do the approval. I'm just going to have it send an email for now. So I'll go ahead and save that. And okay, so recruitment offer sent. Okay, so now notice that it's not kicking off the flow directly from using that execute flow action in this trigger, in this button trigger. It's just simply changing a value. So let me recap here. So when I click send offer here, it is simple. All it's doing is changing this progress column to say offer sent. And then offer sent, the progress column being changed is what's going to trigger the flow. I'll go ahead and kick it off because flows kind of take a minute sometimes. See, it changed it to offer sent. So that progress column being changed to existing as offer sent is what is going to trigger the flow. And if somebody changes an item and the progress says active, the flow's not even going to trigger at all. So it's going to trigger the flow. The flow is going to kick off, and it's going to run, and it's going to look to see if progress is the thing that just changed. It's going to look at all the values of what just changed in that item. So it's only going to go down that path in the flow if progress just got changed to offer sent. So let's go see if it ran. Again, sometimes it takes, especially the first time you kick off a flow, it could take 5 minutes. For some reason, it just takes longer. And of course, when I'm doing demos, it likes to take longer. But I'm waiting for this. Any questions while we're waiting for it to trigger?
Oh, no questions. Nope.
Okay, great. All right. So, come on. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, you're probably wondering, okay, if the offer was already sent, then we don't want it to still say send offer. So that's kind of going to be the next part of the slides, is the conditional formatting concept. I just don't want to, kind of wanting to see and show it running before I go to the next slides, but I might just have to do like, get back to it in a few minutes. Yeah, let's just do that. I'll just go do a couple more slides and then we'll come back and check on it.
There's a question in actually, Laura.
Oh,
There. Yeah.
okay.
Can the action on the button be conditional? For example, if progress equals offer sent, then change the text of the button and the action of the button.
Yes. That's the next section.
Perfect.
I'll go ahead and move. It's still, again, these could take like 5 minutes the first time you kick one off. So I'll go ahead and move on to that.
Perfect.
All right. Can you see my, I think you can see my slides.
Yeah, still see the demo so far anyways. Yeah.
Oh, you still see the demo? Okay.
Yeah.
Sharing. And start sharing again. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So conditional formatting. Here are some examples of the syntax for conditional formatting. And again, if you don't know how to write this syntax, Copilot can do it for you. So these are just a couple of examples. So if the status equals in progress, then mark it to complete task. Otherwise, mark it start task. So what you can do is you can make the verbiage say something different. So in this example, only if the status equals in progress, as you can see down here on the screen, the verbiage says complete task. And then only if the status doesn't equal in progress, it says start task. So that's just for the verbiage, but you have the same syntax that's going to apply when you're doing anything in JSON on these buttons. So you have this if, so it starts with quotes, equals if. So just thinking about writing an if statement, a condition in Excel, or writing an if statement in a Power App, it's got the same structure. So if something, then something, otherwise something. So if status is equal to in progress, and it's in single quotes here, it's got this special little double equals thing. And then if it equals in progress, then complete task and in single quotes, otherwise start task in single quotes. So, and then this is how you can do the syntax for the background color. Also, if the status is in progress, I want it to be yellow, otherwise green. So I'm just using the words yellow and green. You can use CSS, you can use the hex code for a color if you want to. There are always different ways to render the names of colors. So I just use pretty basic, but it's just the name of the color in single quotes. All right, let's do a demo of conditional formatting. Let me share my screen again. Oh, and it ran, so that's exciting. Never know with a live demo.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's running. It's a pretty quick flow. I'm not sure why it's taking this long to run, but so when an item or file is modified, here's all the raw data about the item that was just modified, and I can see the progress value is offer sent. So that's why it triggered the flow. Then it's going to go get the changes. So here's where it's going to have this long list. Let me scroll down here. And this is really what it mainly consists of, is a bunch of trues and falses. So see how progress equals true. So this is what this condition is looking for. Has the column progress changed? And so, yes, it equals true. So then it goes further. So then I have send an email. So now my email has been sent. And I'm not going to go open my email, but I can see, and if I looked in my sent items, I would also see it there. So it kicked off and it sent the email. So it worked. Awesome. Okay, we'll move on to the conditional formatting part. And let me see. Okay. find my code. Okay, so let's do hiding and showing something. We'll do the visible property. So I've got to copy and paste it in here. So action. Let me copy all this. I don't want to mess it up. Copy what I've got before I start pasting different things in here. Okay, so first of all, I've got the concept of the verbiage. So I'll do the TXT content first. So I want it to say something different depending on the value. So I'll go find the spot in here. Let's expand this out. You can stretch it all the way across. So here's my content, TXT content. So that's what the button says. So here's the trick. So I say if progress, and again, that's that system name of your column equals offer sent, then I want it to say hired. Otherwise, I want it to say send offer. Oh, we go. I didn't apply the changes, did I? Hold on. I do that a lot. Okay. I think I just closed it without saving my changes. TXT content, paste it, preview. I'll go ahead and move that out of the way and double check. And so now that's how you can make it show just different verbiage depending on that value. So then here is if I want to completely hide it instead of just showing different verbiage. So what I can do is there in CSS, there is I guess you call it a parameter called display. And so you have the way to just use this display concept to either display the button or don't display the button. And I've even written pretty complex script JSON code like this before, of course, with Copilot's help, that shows two completely different buttons. So you can have two completely different buttons with different verbiage, different things that they're going to do when you trigger them, everything different about them, and you can cram all that code into here and then only show different buttons if under certain circumstances. So you can just use this hide and show thing. And so you have this option of going through all these little minuscule details and doing your condition on like the text and the action input and things like that. Or you can just have like completely different buttons that it shows depending on that condition. So here's where I'm going to say I want it to. Now this display concept is going to go under here as part of the style. So I'm going to say display. And then if progress equals offer sent, none. So the button would just disappear as soon as the offer is sent. And then otherwise, it's going to say inline block. So inline block is just how it's showing the content of that button or not. So I'll go ahead and preview that and kind of move it over. And notice that, look at that, the buttons just disappear. So I'll go ahead and save my changes. I love the fact that you can preview this code before you commit to those changes. So I'll go ahead and save my changes. And now I can see that those other buttons just disappeared. So once that offer has been sent, it can just go away. So I'll go ahead and click another one. This one is Aquaman. And watch what happens as soon as I click send offer, the progress will change to offer sent and the button will disappear. Look at that, just instantaneous. So then that is going to trigger that flow behind the scenes. So do I have any questions about the conditional formatting? Anything else you want me to try? Hiding and showing it is the biggest one in my experience, is just get the whole button to disappear. But does that make sense about having different buttons show that do completely different things if you want to? So you could just have in your code, you could just have an entire element type of button that shows, and you can write that condition to display or not based on the condition, but all of this information within the button can just, again, just be separate buttons.
Laura, there's 2 questions in, if that's okay.
Sure.
So the first question is, how do you do more than one condition? For example, for 3 different status.
Oh, how do you do more than one condition? So in the button syntax, go back here. You would have, so for the custom row action, when it says action input, progress, offer sent. So this is just telling it a specific verbiage to set it to when I click the button. But here is where I can say if equals if, and then I would put the name of that, whatever column I want to refer to, progress. And it even kind of prompts me here. I love that. It's just helping me write this. If progress equals, and then active is another one that I have. I have to put it in single quotes. Then set it to, then it's, within this if statement, it's got single quotes instead of the double quotes that I had before. So if equals active, then change it to offer sent. Otherwise, and you could have nested ifs if you needed to. Otherwise, I'll change it to, then I want it to do, and look at how it's even prompting me with different kind of options that I can put in here. Otherwise hired. So see how I'm just kind of copying this syntax from up here, and I'm just using that same thing and put a comma, put a quote after the comma. It's very particular. Oops, there we go. One quote. Keeps wanting to put 2. Oh, here we go. Did I miss a quote? No. Oh, wait, here I did, right here. See? Right at the beginning. Okay. Now, see, yeah, it's a little time consuming because it's so particular. Then I don't need a comma after that. There we go.
Perfect.
So now this is where I'm saying, this is where you can do a lot of conditions to say, you know, if the value is this, change it to this, otherwise this. And so you get very dynamic. And again, if you have a whole bunch of these that you need to do and a whole bunch of different statuses that you needed to change it to, that might be a good situation to have completely separate buttons and just have all the way they look, their verbiage and everything be different depending on what the current progress is, and hide and show different buttons instead of having to go into this nitty gritty of having all these if statements and nested if statements on every single little, you know, display, color, text, and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. And the next question there is there a permissions level on a list that will allow people to edit and create new items, but will not allow them to go in and change this JSON formatting?
Yes, absolutely. So this is what I recommend. You go to your list settings, you go to permissions. And here's what I always do for all my important lists and libraries that I don't want people changing the settings of. I say stop inheriting permissions. And just the simplest way is to change the members to have contribute permission level. So not edit, but contribute. This is kind of a little tricky verbiage that Microsoft uses here, because edit means they can add, edit, and delete entire lists and libraries and manage all the settings on the entire lists and libraries. They can change the columns, they can delete columns, they can change all the public views, they can just go into the list settings and do whatever they want. And by default, every member of your site can do this on every list and library. So I like to go down. Now there is not an ability to just change this globally for the whole site, to just change it so everybody has contribute on every list and library on the whole site. Maybe if you had PowerShell, you could do that, but it doesn't let you change this at the site level. So I always just go into each list and library and change it to contribute. And that way the people working, the members, can just add, edit, and delete items and not have the ability to break and change the settings and literally just break the whole list. That's my little pet peeve with permissions. Is that
Perfect. That's all the questions so far. Thank you, Laura.
okay? So let's go look at my flow one more time. And thinking about it, because I only triggered it that one time. The other time, maybe it's taking a minute. All right, so that wraps it up. Let me get over to my slides again and reshare here. Okay, so here are some reference links. And when you are in that little window, that little formatting window over that I just had open on the right, it's got a help link in there to get to Microsoft's reference information. But here are the links. It's got just the formatting, the syntax of the formatting. Here's a blog post that I wrote specifically about this. And it's associated with a power hour that I did. I have a show that I do weekly, Wednesdays at 11 Central, on a live show on YouTube called Power Hour. And so that was one of my demonstrations one time. And then here is on GitHub, so many people have created all these really cool formatting things that you can do with JSON on your listen library. So they've created all this code. There are probably hundreds of code samples out there that you can grab for getting that formatting. And then the cool thing is that you can take, a splice of code that someone wrote for a certain way to make a column look, and you can use Copilot to adjust it and say, hey, Copilot, make this look this way, or make it say this. And then Copilot can help you write your code. So that's pretty huge.
Perfect. So thank you, Laura, for great presentation demos. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to put in the chat box now.
Oh, somebody said, can I share the code in this chat? Let me see if it lets me do that. This is just the code that I had in my clipboard.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and that was just the recruitment tracker demo, just list template. And all I did was just create that extra column called button.
Amazing. Yeah, so it looks like, can you share a reference?
Oh, can I share these links in the chat? That's a great idea. Let me see. That would make sense. Let me grab those. Copy link. And one more. And I'll do one more thing and I'll show you how to get to that reference from within the list. So I'll share my screen one more time. Move this out of the way. Okay, so when you are, it shared the wrong thing. Sorry. It had my PowerPoint on the window and then it followed me when I moved it. Okay, so here's the list. If I'm in and just any button in the format this column screen, of course, it's going to take a few seconds. Now I'm trying to show you something real quick.
Perfect. I can put in the just the
Okay,
rate.
so right here. So it says, change the display of this column by adding JSON below, blah, 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 learn more. So when I click learn more, it takes me to this. This is a pretty generic screen that it takes you to here. But when you scroll to the very bottom right here, column formatting JSON reference, way down here, the bottom. And that is what takes you to this more advanced column formatting reference. And then that other, and so this gives you pretty much like a whole tutorial on all the ways that you can format your columns and some things to try. And then that GitHub link is where people have shared their code to be able to make columns look really pretty and interesting.
perfect. Yeah, so it looks like, yeah, so that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/research. Thanks again for all of you joining us today, and I hope you join us again soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.